First of all, Mr. Speaker, I wish, as usual, to thank my very powerful team in my constituency who have seen to my attendance here at this podium for the 36th consecutive year. And there are people who will ask, well, when are you going to call it a day? Well, if you look at the end of this row, you will see someone there who came in here with me. And I've made it very clear that I have no intention of leaving him here. My good friend, Mike Henry. Although he's a bit younger than I am, I intend to remain for as long as I can, and together we perhaps will retire simultaneously, having come and served for those many years. We're actually the second longest serving members of Parliament in the history of Jamaica since adult suffrage in the House of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, my family is here, and I know that these are my son, my wife, and I've heard people say, you refer to me as Mr. St. Thomas, Mr. St. Catherine, Mr. Portland. Well, I'd like to introduce this honorable house to Mr. and Mrs. Red Hills Road. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to pay my respects to the wonderful memories that I have of the late Gary Spalding, who died very suddenly earlier this week. He was a very talented and hard-working journalist that we will miss dearly, along with his colleague, Mr. Sinclair, who I understand only died a few hours before he did while at work. And it meant a lot to him. And unfortunately, he went home and passed away. Might have been accidental, we are not sure, but it is a great loss to the journalistic fraternity, and it is a great loss to me personally. You know, Mr. Speaker, when I was a young politician, somewhere around 1978, I was at a meeting on Red Hills Road, and I was in full flight, and I got a little note that says, "Happy anniversary." That was a note from my wife. And when I reflected on it, I said, my goodness, imagine how quickly 42 years have gone by. And you know that a lot of that has to do with a level of tolerance and a lot of the kind of things that make a marriage last. And you all know how tolerant I am. And how calm and generous and understanding. So it is not surprising that my wife decided to stay with me after these many years. Mr. Speaker, it's a pity that 5 minutes has elapsed and I only have another 40, but I'll try my best to get through what I have to say, representing a very large ministry. Mr. Speaker, let me begin by congratulating the Prime Minister for his vision in combining the portfolios of agriculture and fisheries and industry and commerce. In doing this, the government has signaled that we intend to move our focus in agriculture from mere primary products to the development of agro-industries as a critical plank of our growth and job creation thrust. Mr. Speaker, consolidated in this ministry are the major productive elements of the real economy, spanning agriculture, the distributive trade, manufacturing. Combined, these sectors, they approximate 1/3 of the country's GDP and employs some 45% of our total labor force. We are conscious that these sectors have great potential to continue to contribute more to the GDP and to create more employment if we fully exploit the linkages to tourism and if we move further up the value chain into greater exports utilizing Jamaica's strong brand recognition. Mr. Speaker, this is a marriage whose time has come, and I thank the Prime Minister for the enormous confidence that he has reposed in me to lead in these critical areas to achieving job creation and economic growth. I have the privilege of leading a large, diverse, and multidisciplinary team, and we are now advanced in effecting the amalgamation of the two former ministries. I wish to start by focusing a bit on industry and commerce, and I might add that sitting beside me is my colleague who has vast experience in the field of agriculture, and when he speaks he will be enunciating our policies and what we have been achieving in areas of agri-parks and our crops and aspects of the ministry that cannot be included in this presentation. But, Mr. Speaker, it is now universally acknowledged that micro, small, and medium enterprises, whether in the rail sector or in services, constitute the main driver of growth in most economies. It is true for the United States, and it certainly is true for Jamaica. It is instructive that based on data from the tax administration, Jamaica, 97.6% of all classified business taxpayers are defined as MSMEs. Let me repeat that, 97.6%. So when you talk about the MSME sector, it is the dominant sector that we must focus on. Furthermore, based on Statin's labor force statistics, over 413 Jamaicans are classified as own account workers, that is, self-employed persons. This is not a group of people to be ignored by any standard if we are serious about economic growth and job creation. Given the 413,000, given the creative potential of this sector, its propensity for innovation and job creation, the government has to focus on this sector in a more structured way. In fact, it is noteworthy that since the end of the recession in the mid-2000s, MSMEs in the United States accounted for 60% of net new jobs created. Mr. Speaker, I interpret my mandate as an imperative to mobilize, harness, and encourage and promote the potential of MSMEs through policy support, improved access to financing, training, business facilitation, and simply to make it easier for these people to do business and create wealth. Mr. Speaker, when I talk about MSMEs, I'm talking about a sector that integrates small business people, whether they be in farming, retail trade, craft, manufacturing, tourism, or services of other kinds. My mission is to elevate the MSMEs to a formal and structured sector in the Jamaican economy and to accord them the dignity they deserve as critical contributors to national building, nation building. The recent establishment of a separate unit in the former Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. It was a good initiative, the establishment of the unit, the MSME unit, and I commend you for it. We are now, however, moving one stage further, and we are creating a division within the ministry in order to place a level of emphasis that we think is necessary on the sector. What, one may ask, does the MSME office do? In one word, Mr. Speaker, the MSME office is about policy. It is about policy development, policy coordination, policy consultation. My ministry is the focal point in Jamaica to drive cohesive and appropriate policies geared towards addressing the growth and strengthening of the MSME sector. In accepting this mandate, the following policy initiatives are being championed. Improving access to financing for the productive microsector, working closely with the Finance Ministry, the DBJ and private sector financial institutions, including banks, credit unions, and microfinancing. You know, Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned that, this Honorable House will recall that the matter of the financial state of National People's Cooperative Bank was in the public domain last year. The situation at the National People's Cooperative Bank triggered the removal of the management and board of the bank by the Agricultural Credit Bank and the commissioning of a forensic audit. I am reporting to this Honorable House today that the report of the forensic audit has been brought officially to my attention. Suffice it to say that aspects of these findings are sufficiently disturbing for me to refer the matter to the Cabinet for consideration and guidance. I will therefore revert to this House as soon as the Cabinet deliberates on this matter. Improving the business environment to increase the ease with which MSMEs can do business. This includes business names and company regulations. And we are getting to the point where we had originally planned to have it completed by the end of June. It now appears it will be a little later, but nonetheless, we will soon be having same-day registration of companies electronically. Paying taxes, of course, is something that we don't rank very highly on the doing business report, the ease of paying taxes. And we'll have to focus to the greatest extent possible under our regulations, under our responsibilities, areas of responsibilities, to assist in that process. Ensuring that there is a network of qualified providers across the island, offering business development services, counseling, training, and capacity building. Over the next 3 months, we will undertake a limited review of the 2013 MSME and entrepreneurship policy in order to update that policy. An important feature of the review will be to reconcile the varying definitions of MSMEs to ensure a standard definition. There is nothing more unsettling than to have a discussion with someone talking about MSMEs, but you don't know what defines it. You don't know what is the actual definition of the sector. This initiative will improve the reporting of financial statistics for the sector and will lay the foundation for development of more tailored financing products. This is part and parcel of my ministry's resolve to establish national key performance indicators for the MSME sector to ensure consistent data reporting, measurements, and monitoring. An initiative is now underway to expand the outreach of business development services across Jamaica, working in partnership with the parish-based institutions and through web-based services. And in that regard, I must say that we have made arrangement with the chambers of commerce across the country to meet every 3 months. And at those meetings, we will review all the obstacles to business so that we will be in touch from the ministry standpoint and the private sector. We will be in touch with all the issues that must be addressed, and collectively, through a working partnership, we will be able to get the job done. Regular structured meetings. The Economic Council is not as focused. This is a MSME-driven initiative coming from the ministry, because we feel that it needs that level of focus and not be broad-based, but be more. A national catalog of MSME initiatives have already been prepared by the MSME office. It is now going through a final review. The catalog will be available on the ministry's website by the end of June, and it will be continuously updated. The goal is to have a one-stop information center. Put right. Well, you know, as the Prime Minister said when he spoke, and I couldn't agree with him more, in every relay, a baton is passed. Once you get that baton, your commitment to the team and to all that is viewing is to get to the finish line first. And that is what I'm about. So I give you credit for everything that you did that is constructive. We will now take that as our baton to go to the finish line. Information will be in real time, and it will be on our website. National mentorship program is one that is very near and dear to my heart. I visited Canada, and it was explained to me, and I think it is perhaps one of the most exciting things to look forward to, where large businesses, the heads of large businesses, will serve as mentors for micro and small business players for 6 months sitting. And I spoke to one of the largest in the country, and his response was, bring them right away, I'll put them in the office right beside me. Now imagine for a moment a youngster from Trenchtown, a youngster from Tivoli, a youngster from Red Hills Road, a youngster from Olympic Gardens, that gets the opportunity to sit beside one of the real captains of industry, many of whom are here now.
Yes.
And they have all bought into the idea to serve their part in helping youngsters to have a sense of confidence. So that is one of the initiatives that we will be pursuing, and we'll be making a big issue of it. And we'll be following the progress made by the youngster. Whilst the ministry's division will focus on policy, the Jamaica Business Development Corporation will continue and intensify its efforts to provide facilitation services and training to the MSME sector. In this regard, and within the context of this new marriage, the JBDC will engage the farming community in a very fulsome way. Not that they weren't involved before, but if you look outside, for instance, on entering here, the best display ever put on in the history of Parliament is right through those doors. through those doors. And they reflect the commitment, creativity, ingenuity, and hard work of people in the JBDC. They will give me a little more. For instance, we will allocate space in our agro-parks for small entrepreneurs, including farmers, to engage in processing and other value-added services.
Thank you.
We note that in 2015, 87% of disbursements of wholesale loans to this critical sector was provided by the Development Bank of Jamaica. Now reflect on that. 87% in 2015 was provided by the JDB. Where are the commercial banks? They are being left behind, and they must come in and join this effort, this collective effort to help the small players to grow and develop and become big players. We are therefore appealing to them to join in unreservedly. You know, I agree with the former Prime Minister when she says we must work as a partnership. And that is what we are about. We are about building partnership, but I will only add two little words. Partnership for prosperity. I know she's reluctant to use those last two, but that's what we represent. A partnership for prosperity. Mr. Speaker, based on certain recent events in relation to the importation of motor vehicles into the free zone and the release of those vehicles into the domestic market, I am constrained to remind this Honourable House of the reasons why the free zones were established in the first place. Mr. Speaker, the Customs Department of any country has the critical responsibility of ensuring that all goods entering a particular country, whether by air or by sea, do so in a particular manner and subject to scrutiny and to duties before such goods are released into the domestic market for their intended use. The movement of goods into free zones is an exception to this general principle. Free zones are established essentially to foster the development of production for export, fostering the development of production for export. I have noted the practice in recent times of entities bringing in motor vehicles into the free zone without first applying for a permit to bring in these vehicles, as prescribed under the Trade Act. The said importers then apply to the Ministry of Industry and Commerce when the vehicles are already domiciled in the free zone for a license to release the said vehicles into the domestic market.
Who gets credit for that now?
Mr. Speaker, I repeat, free zones were not created to facilitate the importation of motor vehicles and the warehousing of motor vehicles and their subsequent release into the domestic market. Therefore, people who wish, and I want you to listen, people who wish to import motor vehicles must not bring them into the free zone and then rely upon this Minister of Industry and Commerce to issue import licenses for their release into domestic market. Let's make that very clear, and I will repeat it for emphasis. People who wish to import vehicles must not bring them into the free zone and then expect that this minister is going to give them a permit to allow them to enter the domestic market. Not only is this practice contrary to the spirit of the concept of free zones, but it also frustrates the intent of the Trade Act and gives an unfair advantage to those who engage in this practice vis-a-vis traditional dealers who import motor vehicles in the normal way in accordance with the Trade Act. Mr. Speaker, this ministry exists to facilitate production and exports, and not wanton importation that enriches only a few. In this regard, we will be doing our utmost, and the entire ministry is mobilized in this regard. It makes it easier for everybody to do business. Mr. Speaker, in respect to facilitating the manufacturing sector, we have entered into discussions with the Customs Department, and we have concluded that at no stage will a concession to which a manufacturer is entitled by way of being recognized as a manufacturer, in no way will that turnaround time exceed 15 days. Less, but never to exceed 15 days, and that's an agreement. Before going into agriculture, I want to just touch very briefly on a subject that has been very topical, and that is the question of cannabis. Let me just say to all Jamaica, as the minister with responsibility for cannabis and the issuing of licenses, on the advice of the authority, it is a very challenging area. Very challenging area. It is not easy, and notwithstanding the flood of requests for licenses and for land on which to grow cannabis, let me make it clear that we are against the 8 ball in respect of the international community, who at the moment classifies marijuana as among the most dangerous drugs in the world. The first place to start is to get that registration or classification changed before we can start, because right now we are, I think, must be the second most dangerous drug in the world. Schedule 1. So therefore, we are not on an easy path to getting this type of industry. What I will say is that the authority is working assiduously in their efforts to create a facility to accommodate the production of medical marijuana, and to recognize the need to respect sacrilegious rights. Therapeutic rights imply medical applications. So that is the only thing that we are focusing at the moment. Anybody with the notion that it's an opportunity to get land and plant cannabis for the purpose of recreation, at this time, I'm afraid that is not likely to happen. It's not likely to happen. Mr. Speaker, the very first challenge I faced on assuming office was the widespread problems in the sugar industry. Please. I faced was the widespread problems in the sugar industry, precipitated by low export prices in the European Union and 2 years of the most savage drought we have seen for years. I'm glad to see Ambassador Heaven here, who traveled with me to the last Quartet meeting, where we discussed the whole question of sugar. Mr. Speaker, I dare say that the current problems in the sector are merely a manifestation of deep-seated structural problems that the industry has failed to address for decades. The structural problem relates to the failure to fully exploit the versatility of the sugarcane to produce multiple products, to diversify our markets, and to invest sufficiently in field operations to attain levels of productivity and efficiencies that would make the industry competitive. It is as simple as that. Divestment in and of itself might have been necessary, but it was certainly not sufficient. Mr. Speaker, it was imperative that we look immediately and take action to stabilize the industry, even whilst the focus on the more long-term restructuring is required. In the case of Long Pond, when I announced in this honorable House that the government would be temporarily assuming the operations of the Long Pond factory, and that we are considering the request of Pan Caribbean to operate Monimus for 1 year, many thought that I had gone mad. I have since made it abundantly clear, and I am repeating it here for emphasis, that the government is not returning to the sector as a major player in the operation. However,
Yes, 13 minutes.
Leave him alone. Give you extra time.
However, a responsible government, Minister, I'm sure you agree, Minister Kelly, a responsible government must act to save jobs and sections of the industry on a temporary basis, particularly when it can be done without making a financial contribution. In short, when you can use strategies that can be developed that don't cost the taxpayer any money. Mr. Speaker, I am reporting to this honorable House today, despite all the naysayers, despite all the criticisms and personal abuse, I am reporting to this honorable House today that using approximately $180 million that the previous government allocated for transportation to transport cane from Long Pond to Worthy Park and to Appleton, in the belief that Appleton would become operational. So we could lie back and be content. We provide the money for transporting cane, so we expect Appleton to come back, so do nothing. We have successfully effected, in record time, repairs to the Long Pond factory and commenced operations there some 3 weeks ago. Mr. Speaker, by so doing, we are currently, I want you to listen to this very carefully. We are currently in the process of rescuing 70,000 tons of cane while honoring Minister of Finance a commitment to supply 45,000 tons to Worthy Park to give them additional throughput to make their factory more profitable. So all those who were saying that this madman that they have put in agriculture don't know what he is doing. You leave my friend alone. You leave my friend alone. You leave my friend alone. By doing this, our friend, By doing this, we have rescued the livelihood of over 230 farmers while preserving 130 jobs in the factory. And this without adding one extra cent beyond the money that was provided for transportation. So far, now I'm not a magician. I just have good business sense based on my limited training. I don't say big training, you know, I don't have no big thing. But, no, man, after. So far, the factory has milled, and I want you to hear this, Minister, and I want you to hear it particularly, Minister, who said that it's going to cost us $500 million more. So far, the factory has milled some 4,550 tons of cane.
What?
Cane, you must be so impatient. You're getting on in age, but impatience will shorten your life. Take it easy. The factory has milled some 4,500 tons of cane and produced 327 tons of sugar. That is what you said couldn't be done. Let me repeat. The government is only in this for this crop. In parallel, we are working intensely with the owners of Long Pond to find new investors to invest in other revenue streams complementary to sugar, such as cogeneration, ethanol, and the production of other biogas for energy. In the case of Monimos, Mr. Speaker, since Caribbean announced its intention not to reopen the Monimos factory as far back as November, 3 months before I came to office, for the 2016-2017 crop year, the government has engaged the principals of Pan-Caribbean and agreed to the following. 1, Sugar Company of Jamaica, SCJ Holdings Limited, on behalf of the government, will manage some 2,800 hectares of cane from now to the end of the 2016 crop year. Ask Ascot what that means to him.
Yes.
Ask Roddy Spencer what that means to him. Ask Mike Henry what that means to him. All of them. Ask them what that means to them. SCJ Holdings, in turn, has invited cane farmers to lease land on a 1-year basis. 1 year, 18 blocks. And let me explain to you, non-cane farmer. You are simply caring for ratoon. You know what ratoon is? Not only the rum that you finish at the end of the barrel. Ratoon is the roots that takes water and it springs, and you just care for the ratoon. It's not the most expensive aspect of the thing. Well, Ascot, you know. You said Long Pond couldn't open either.
Tell him again.
That's what you said.
Tell him again.
No, you said that 1 year can't work. Why you don't go and have a discussion with the people who are willing to sign today to manage it for 1 year?
10 years. Give him 15 years. Give him 20 years.
Applications have already been shortlisted. Applicants have already been shortlisted, and arrangements have been made with the input suppliers to extend credit to these farmers on a crop lien basis. The deal couldn't spin, former minister, without a crop lien arrangement. It couldn't spin. That's just part of the strategy. The irrigation system that serves the aforementioned 2,800 hectares will be operated by National Irrigation Commission for the 1 year period. SCJ Holdings Limited. The SCJ Holdings Limited is to operate the Monimus factory free of rental for the 2016-2017 crop in order to mill the over 150 tons of cane expected to be reaped. Mr. Speaker, on the basis of this agreement, which was yesterday approved by the Cabinet, the SCJ Holdings will operate the Monimus factory for 2016-2017 crop year. That is the answer. The SCJ will operate the facilities for 2016-2017 crop year. And so, Mr. Former Minister of Finance, your father's memory will be honored as a former 35-year worker at Monimus. 40. You will know what that means to you and your family.
Amen. Clap him.
Suffice it to say that the government's sole interest and motivation is the preservation of jobs and the livelihood of independent farmers as long as local economy needs it in southern Clarendon. Our intervention is a holding position while Pan-Caribbean engages new investors in their field operation and other streams of revenue from the sugarcane with a view to resume operations in 2016-2017 crop year. That is what we are told is the plan from Pan-Caribbean's point of view. Again, they are going to resume. They are giving them their solemn commitment. However, a prudent government does not wait until the last minute to get another love letter. So we are going to be taking proactive steps to ensure that the interests of the cane farmers and the workers of southern Clarendon are protected.
Here, here. Here, here. Here, 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 here.
Mr. Speaker, the reality is that as struggling as the sugar industry is, we have not yet, nor will we in the near future, find any economic activity of the scale of the sugar industry to sustain life in southern Clarendon. Mr. Speaker, this is not a social adventure. The sugar industry can be viable and profitable if properly organized and run. What then is the future of sugar? Mr. Speaker, I know that many in this society have written off the sugar industry as an abject failure, and every so often we hear the cries to close it down. Very few proposals have emerged. However, as to what will replace sugar in the short run and the medium run, very few proposals have been received. What is it that we're going to replace it with? People do not feed their children, clothe their children, and send their kids to school by installment. They don't send their kids to school on an installment plan. So when there's no money, their children can't go to school. And that is what we are seeing now with the closure of Appleton. Which other, I asked the former Minister of Finance, which other economic activities can pump over 80 million into the local economy every fortnight? Which industry you know of can pump $80 million every fortnight into the economy? As a former Minister of Agriculture gave you advice, when you are making your first shipment, you go with it to America. At the moment, the closure of Appleton has affected 4,000 families. And independent farmers have 70,000 tons of independent farmers' cane that will not be reaped at a cost of some $240 million. That is what the closure of Appleton means. And that doesn't include Appleton's loss, the estate loss. Just the farmers lost cane 70,000 tons. Mr. Speaker, without a doubt, we have to once and for all abandon the practice of sending raw bulk sugar into the hull of a ship to be
The Minister's time for speaking has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the member's time be extended by 10 minutes to allow him to continue his presentation.
The question is that the member's time be extended for 10 minutes to allow him to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? Ayes have it.
When he's talking, you're going to be calling him just like you're calling me. We have to terminate this practice of putting bulk sugar in a hull of a ship and sending it to Teta Lyle, where they refine it and send it back to Jamaica at a heck of a cost. We have a 300-ton market right here in the CARICOM that only one player of significance has taken advantage of. But I'll come back to that. We also have an E10 mandate. The existence of a number of distilleries proximate to the sugar factories make the manufacture of ethanol feasible. Additional bagasse can be used for cogeneration. Already Pan-Caribbean has invested in 2 brand new cogeneration plants at Monimus and Frome. In fact, Monimus does not buy electricity from the JPS. Mr. Speaker, there is a company in eastern Jamaica owned by Sectoral that has embarked on a brave and bold venture. With the permission of the SIA, they have packaged their own sugar. And they have commenced marketing this sugar under their brand as far as Puerto Rico and the United States and other regions within the CARICOM at a higher price than we are getting from Teta Lyle in this little scrap broken down price of $370 a ton. They are getting up to $500 a ton by simply working hard, going out and attacking the market. And that is what I want to hear people promote, that our producers who can produce competitively go out there, trod ground, knock on doors, and get sales for Jamaica to earn foreign exchange. That is what I respect, and that is what this government will support, that kind of initiative. We made it clear when Ambassador Heaven was in Courthead with me. I made it clear. I said, based on what we have seen Sectoral do, based on the formulas that they have devised, and their effort, and their investment, putting money where their mouth is, I'm prepared to give ample notice to Caribbean countries, especially Trinidad, that we are coming for the sugar market. Jamaica is going to go in there and competitively get market share. Mr. Speaker, that is the great hope. That is a great hope that effort by that company. That is what that company has meant to me in terms of a minister, because that is the mentality that I respect. And I never knew the owner of the company that well before I became a minister. But I must tell you, I have the greatest respect and admiration for him because he represents the future.
It
it is just incidental that he happened to be in the house.
He's in the house?
He's in the balconies.
Excellent.
But I don't put nothing behind my back when I'm going liquor man, and if I'm going to say something good, I talk it right in front. And that is what I feel about that company and others who have and others who have taken the initiative to create business models. I hear people complaining about Trinidad is exporting to us and we're not exporting to them.
Chairman and Vice
Models are what make people make money.
Chairman, Vice
Proper business models. That started, a model started with Jamaica broilers and has been adopted by other companies, including the Separate Group, where they have now gone into acquisition of the Nestle factory after the devastation of the mid-90s, when through bad policies we ruined the dairy industry. Ruined. What? You don't worry about that. You don't worry about it. You don't worry about my speech. You worry about yours when you're ready to talk. You know, Mr. Speaker, in 1995, in this honorable house, I spoke to a gentleman and then followed it up with a letter. And that gentleman, I said, I'll just read one part of it that is significant today. I said, Prime Minister, an investment and personal involvement in agriculture goes beyond the need to earn large profits. For most, it represents commitment to their country and a way of life, despite the hardships and uncertainties involved. And in my own case, it meant just that. Convinced as I was that on no account would any public body run counter to sound, long-term economic objectives firmly rooted in the principles of self-reliance, I unreservedly invested my money and the energies and hopes of my entire family. That letter was written by me in 1995 to P.J. Patterson. I got no response. I got no response, but what I did get a response. I got an administrative decree that led to the ruination of the dairy industry and 500 dairy farmers, and the destruction of the dairy herd, which is today only held up and kept alive by the same company at Surge Island headed by P.B. Scott. Make no mistake.
Patriot.
He bought the Nestle where I used to sell my milk. And with the plan of Jamaica broilers, where he plans to make investments in the youth, investments in the conscientious young entrepreneurs who we will help to start up a dairy, fund the parlor. In fact, Ascot, you better go to him and borrow some money because your parlor not good. Fix them up in a business and they will be paid without cost, and they will pay back the company through the sales of the product that they produce. With the extent, your father sat across the table with me. That was the bedrock of committed people developing an agricultural sector, dairy industry. And I don't know how you don't cry at night when you consider what has become of that industry.
His wife says he does. His wife says
it was the
he does.
most devastating and misguided policy ever introduced in this country and inimical to the interests of agriculture was done by the People's National Party government of the mid-90s. And I don't resign from that. So you see, Mr. Speaker, you will note that we have laid the JACRA, and the Minister without portfolio will address that, because it is clear to me that gone are the days when we could rely on this honorable House to enable a Minister of Government to speak fulsomely on their ministry. Because you see, the truth of the matter is, sometime earlier, when the House was being led by that side while over here, with very little to say, you had to get it contracted in the shortest possible time. And so even ministers were contained to 45 minutes. And the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister, my friend, knows and understands what I am saying. It is inefficient, and it is not sufficient to allow a minister to present properly in a ministry that is as expansive as this. And when my colleague comes to speak, he will not even get through half. I have no doubt about that. But you don't have to worry, colleagues, because I will be here to close the debate. And as they say, what you miss on the swing, you pick up on the roundabout. Amen. And we will. And I'll also be here to judge the time that you spend at the wicket. Anyway, it has been a pleasure. Thank you very much.